We are a blended family.
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 We're a blended family.
We are a blended family.
We are a blended family.
We are a blended family.
And we are a blended family. Hi, we're Doctors Larry and Carol Snap. We're glad to have you with us today.
Good morning. This is Blended Families Ministry coming to you live from the Green City Church at the Glendale campus. And we're here to talk to you about Lesson 12, which is to earn respect, you must give respect. And here's Larry. He's going to talk to you about respect.
Everybody's heard of the golden rule, right? Whoever has the gold makes the rules.
No, that's not it, Larry.
Do unto others before they do unto you. No? What is it then? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Right? Treat others like you want to be treated. Pretty simple. Matthew 7:12, therefore all things you would that men should do to you, do even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. And then in Luke, kind of the same thing. As you would that men should do to you, do also to them likewise. Okay, so this is kind of a marriage class. It's a family class kind of thing. So if both spouses in a marriage would only abide by this one principle, divorce would be almost non-existent. But because we live in a fallen world and there's a lot of sin out there, not everybody does that. There's a lot of selfishness which goes against that. People tend to do what they want for themselves, and they don't take into account what that might do to somebody else. But again, one reason the divorce rate is so high is selfishness. That's really the number one cause. Whatever that manifests itself as, that selfishness, it could be just finances, hiding money, spending money without care to the family, all that kind of stuff, some sort of addiction, adultery, all that kind of stuff. It's all about me, me, me.
Well, this class is also for singles, Larry, to re-edify what we should be looking for in a partner if God wants us to have another partner. So it also is for singles as well. We're just here to get educated and remind us what we should be looking for.
True. Yes. And part of this whole class is getting you ready.
Christian Living Radio.
If you're not already married, it gets you ready, like Carol said, for what you need to be looking for. Like you guys were kind of saying, you saw each other online, but there were certain standards that had to be met, or it was no-go at a very high level. And then if that was met, then you got into the finer details and worked things out that way. But this whole semester has been about getting you ready, getting you right, getting the vertical correct, so that when God brings somebody, you're ready. And it's important to not be needy. So, basically what we say, we get filled from above. All good things come from above. We get downloaded from God so that we can pour out. But if we're not getting filled, we tend to try to get filled from somebody else this way. And then they're short. They're probably already short. But if we're taking from them, they're even less. Right? So we want to get filled so we can pour out the excess that God puts in us. Okay, so it's what happens when there's all this selfishness going on. People tend to just leave instead of trying to figure out how to do better, right? It's the lazy way out, right? People don't like to change. It's hard because you really have to look inside and see what you're doing that needs to be different. And most people just don't want to do that. Okay, so what is respect? This lesson's all about respect. I pulled out a Wikipedia definition. It says the esteem for or a sense of the worth or excellence of a person, of personal quality, ability, something they're able to do. In certain ways, respect manifests itself as a kind of ethic or principle, such as in the commonly taught concept of having respect for others, or reciprocity. You do this to me, I'll do that for you. Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. This whole thing here is all about like the me generation, which is like kids born in the 70s through 1999. So that would have been kids I would have had probably. So it's kind of conviction of my generation is not being very good parents. Just, what do you want? Okay, here. You know? 'Cause we had it pretty good. Right? Our folks, my folks, grew up during the Depression, World War II, Korea. Things were pretty tough. And for some, really tough. So, they scrimped and they saved, and if something broke, they fixed it. They didn't just go get another one, whatever it was. But I grew up with that kind of attitude, and so, I wanted to make things better, which was like easier. Maybe not better, but easier. And not that we did that so much.
No.
Because we were still kind of the old folks.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people, it's like, whatever you want, okay, here, have it, But in that whole process, they kind of lost the respect for their elders. Like, the grandparents weren't really in the picture all that much. People started moving around a lot more, When I was a kid, all the family was at least within, like 20 or 30 miles. And you go visit and go do things, and everybody get together for the holidays and all that kind of stuff. I was one of the few that, left the state. So, it's like every 10 years you go visit. So the whole family gets all spread out. And so you kind of lose some of the connection of the family and all that. But what really happened was the Bible got taken out of the schools. People just started, whatever. If it feels good, do it. That whole kind of thing. But parents weren't teaching respect for any sort of authority, but especially God. And so, after a while, they really didn't respect much of anything. And a lot of them didn't even respect themselves. So, if you don't respect yourself, how do you expect to be able to respect anybody else? So there was quite a few challenges there just as a generational thing. We see it now, it's even worse, right? Yeah. Because they didn't do it either. They didn't have a clue,
But they feel entitled now.
Yeah. The big thing I've seen nowadays is there's so many people out there that just feel like, I don't want to work. There's no work ethic. Like you said, entitled. It's like, well, I grew up with this, I should have this. Now that I'm an adult, I should just have it. Like nice house, nice car, all that kind of stuff you kind of grow up with. Your parents work their lives for. You figure you should just start there, right? So, not so good. Now, back to blended families here. In a blended family, especially, there is a huge need for husband and wife to be good servants toward each other. Now, like what you guys said, you really focused on how to be a good team, right? You understood teamwork, not I'm the star on the team, right? The teams that win the championships play together as a team for the most part. There's always somebody that's maybe a little better, the go-to person, but they can't do it by themselves. They need the whole team there. So it's great to be a team, especially when Christ is in the middle of it. And the whole thing with the pyramid, getting closer to God as individuals brings you closer together. But men and women are so different, it's no wonder you don't really understand the other one. Okay, there's a lot of differences. We've been through a lot of that already. You're physically, mentally, and emotionally different. I don't see things the way you do.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah. To be different, because we are.
Different is good. Right? Wouldn't be any fun if we're exactly alike. It'd be kind of boring. But yeah, so part of this blending process, and it can take years, but if you really kind of focus in on it and make it a priority, like we have the pyramid, priority pyramid, you're spending more time getting to know the person you're with, getting what are their preferences, what are their gifts, what are their skills, who's better at this than, like the financial end of things, who's got a head for that, who's got a gift for numbers, right? Just because you're the husband or the wife doesn't mean it's your job to do this. Maybe they're not so good at it. Let the other one do it. We've gone back and forth.
Yeah.
Carol's finances were kind of a mess when we first got together.
No, you don't have to tattle.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, this one story's good.
He loves to tell this story.
So one of the first things we did when we got married was put the checkbook together. Right? So she had hers, I had mine.
Now, I was a single parent.
Single parent,
with
three kids, 2 jobs.
You were a bachelor.
Bachelor with a really
Never
good
married.
job.
I was the third woman you'd ever dated. So you were used to just Larry.
Oh, yeah.
So let's tell the whole story, Larry.
Life was good.
All right. Now finish the rest.
So we get to, we're going to the banks, getting a joint account opened up, and we're closing out her old one. And
We go to yours first, though.
right, yeah, we went to mine first, closed out, and I found I had forgot to write in a $200 deposit.
Can you imagine forgetting to write?
Just forgot to write it in there, so I didn't know I had it. It was there, so I had like $200 more than I thought when we closed it out. Right, so then we go to hers, and there was almost that much in overdraft fees.
I was floating my checks.
Yeah, that was back in the day where you could float a check for a day or
Yeah, a
two.
couple of days, and then they
Right.
changed the system.
You get paid on Friday, you write the check on Wednesday, and hopefully you get to the bank before your check does. Right?
That was good news.
Back then they only charged like $10.
Well, it was good news because it was exactly
Yeah, pretty much wiped the whole
that
thing out.
deposit he forgot he had.
So didn't know I had it,
It was meant to be.
and I really didn't have it when we got to the end of the story. So, but anyway, so in the beginning, I took care of the checkbook and everything. I could get it down to the penny most of the time, and occasionally in the checkbook register, I put ESP, and draw a couple of lines and then like start over, just error someplace. And I couldn't figure out where it was, so I just
Change on the counter to make it better.
yeah, right. Here, figure it out. Here's 20 cents, you know. And it was always like a few pennies off somewhere.
But you also had me cut up mine.
Yeah, we got rid of the credit cards, got them paid off.
Life was that credit.
You know, but, so it was a bit of a challenge in the beginning. The first 6 months or so, it was a little rough, trying to get the money all straightened out. But I had a pretty decent job, and kept a second job for a while.
I kept the second job because I didn't feel it was right. He paid my credit card off because it was my credit card, so I did keep my second job for a while.
As a waitress. But most of the time what happens, and we've gone through, this was lesson 3, who's normal's normal, right? Different isn't wrong, it's just different. And respect the fact that God made each and every person unique, right? See, if we have that kind of an attitude, that kind of a godly perspective on life and who we are as created in the image of God, we should respect everybody as being a child of God. Now, whether they know God or not, that's a whole different story. But God made it in His image. Whether they get it or not, that's on them. But you have your own special purpose for being created. You weren't created just to take up space. You have purpose. And part of that purpose is to get to know God. He created you. He wants you to get to know Him. He knows you very well. He made you, right? But He wants you to know Him. So it goes both ways. Right? He wants you to know Him well enough that you would discover what your purpose is. And He will be faithful to reveal it to you. And we referenced this once before, but Psalms 139:14, I'll praise Thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. It's important to know that. I mean, to know that, right? Not just to, oh yeah, that's what it says, but to internalize that. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That's how God made me.
Unique. There's not another like you.
Yep. Even identical twins are not 100% identical.
Right.
I had, still do have identical twin cousins, and until they were like 6 or 7, I couldn't tell them apart. I mean, they were very close. Now it would be fairly easy to tell them apart now, you know. But I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and marvelous are Thy works, and that my soul knows right well. So God made us that we're extremely valuable to Him. And we just kind of need to be aware of how valuable we are to Him without getting a fat head. And we still need to stay humble, but know we're worth something. Satan hates that. He wants to destroy us because we are very valuable to God. Valuable to Him, so He wants to destroy us. Okay, so just as God meets all our needs, He doesn't always give us all our wants. Now, for me, this is kind of a car guy, so it's like, that's kind of where I go. Cars, food, that kind of stuff. But I might want a Mercedes or a Rolls or a Bentley or something to be able to go from here to there, and God will provide a bicycle. You need a bicycle to get somewhere. You don't need a luxury car, right? So there's that. He will make sure you get what you need to have. Okay? Need being the operative word there. In any marriage, love and respect go hand in hand. And men need respect, women need love. Now, we've done that whole, well, I guess that's part of this. The crazy circle, you guys all heard that one before. It's if she, well, without love, she reacts. Without respect, he reacts. Without love, round and around we go, and where it stops, right? But that is all about Ephesians 5:33. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself. Love your neighbor as yourself. And the wife see that she reverence her husband. Now, Emerson Eggridge, Dr. Emerson Eggridge, did this whole thing at one of the INCs, 10 years ago now, probably, at least.
Yeah.
All about that particular scripture. And he'd read that, I've been a pastor for 20-some years. He read it, at least once a year. And this one time it just dawned on him, they're not the same words here. The scripture is telling the men to love their wife, but it's telling the wife to respect her husband. Why aren't we just loving everybody? Oh, because men need respect. That's the air we breathe. That's how he put it. That's the air tank, is respect. And for the ladies, it's love. Carol loves it when I say I love you. For me, I hear I love you all the time, but if I feel disrespected, that doesn't fly much. It cancels it all out. Now she doesn't go around telling me that she respects me, but I feel it. I see it, I feel it. Once in a while I hear it, which is cool.
I say, I appreciate you.
Yeah, that's respect. Yeah, right? But in the old days, before Jesus, I suppose, I would get this little thing that I felt disrespected because there was this, you need to do something, rather than, would you please do something? Right? So I felt like I was being commanded to do something.
But that's not the way I meant it.
Well,
You just don't like that word need.
Well, I'm a guy, so if I'm being told I have to do something, and it's not my commanding officer.
So we don't use that word in our house.
Although in a way she is, I suppose.
We don't use that word in the house.
But to me there was a big difference between being told to do something. You need to do this.
I think that's one thing that really stuck with me from the first time that we did this class. And so now when there's something that I personally think he should be doing or that needs to be done, I think about it first and I'm like, hey babe, I think this needs to do this. I think we need to, because if I communicate it as a we,
yeah. Now it's a team thing.
No, it's a team thing, but he takes care of it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like, if I state it as I think we should do this or I think this needs to be done, it's more of getting confirmation and that he acknowledges that it needs to be done versus you go do this kind of thing. So that's one thing that kind of stuck with me is making sure I communicate it in a way that doesn't sound like I'm telling him to go do things, but at the same time letting him know that things need to be taken care of.
Well, see, there's like a trick to that, right?
Yeah.
It's all in the way it's said. And if she asks me to do something, I'm all over it. Would you do this? Oh yeah, sure. No problem. But if I hear you need to,
would you mind taking care of this or would you mind blah blah blah? Normally it's like, of course not.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. But if I hear that you need my heels dig in, So it's love versus respect. Men need respect, women need love, and that's Ephesians 5:33. It tells us to do the opposite of our nature.
This is Christian Living Radio.
In our flesh, we don't want to do that. Women, because of the curse in the garden, they kind of want to be in charge. Part of the curse. And so it's just sort of a natural, you need to do this kind of thing, right?
That's not the intent there.
Well, again, intention versus what it sounds like to me, right? Not the same. Because I don't always hear it the way it's intended. I hear it the way I hear it. So, but that's kind of the beauty of being married, especially for so long. You get it after a while.
Well, you start off nice. We need to do this, and we need to do that.
And it's even
but then when it doesn't get done, then it's like, okay, you need to do this.
Well, you've attempted, right? And saying, and there's there's like, you need to do this, or we need to do this, or this needs to happen, right?
Somebody's got to do it.
But there's something about, at least in my head, if it feels like, or I get the idea that maybe it was my idea to do something, then I'll do it. But if it's being thrown at me, like, I have to. You don't have to keep reminding me every 6 months to do it. I'll get to it.
Every 6 months.
I know.
I just decided that I was going to do it. So if I've asked a couple times for things to be done and they don't get done, I start to take care of them. And he's like, well, what are you doing? I'm doing what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I said I'd take care of it.
And that's what I used to do.
Same here.
Too. And he'd get upset because I was doing it.
Yeah. She would suggest that I do something. And I'm like, okay. But I was like Pastor Leo.
Now? You mean now? You would say?
Molly would ask him to do something and say, okay, sure, no problem. But it would be like in the fourth quarter of the basketball game when she would ask.
I'm like for commercial.
In his head, it was like, well, when the game's over.
Yeah.
Sure, no problem.
Yours is when the game's
But
over.
then, it's like
6 months.
10 seconds to go, and it's like a 1-point game or something. It's like, well, are you going to do this or what? Timing.
It's called communication.
Communication. Yeah.
Is key.
Think about how the other person is going to hear it before you say it.
Run it through my Jesus filter, Larry.
Yeah, those.
What would Jesus say? What would Jesus say? He'd still say, Larry, you need to take that trash out.
Well, if he said it, that's different.
Yeah.
I might do it. Maybe. Anyway, men instinctively know and understand respect. We work at a job somewhere, and pretty much everything that happens is based on the respect thing. Most guys don't go around the office or the construction site or whatever saying, hey, I love you, man. I mean, it's a respect thing. It's you've been on the job longer than me, or you're the boss, or it's a performance thing, or it's a position thing. We get that. We just understand it, like instinctively, right? And one of those things in the garden where we have a problem now is that Adam's first instinct was to shift the blame for the sin. He said, well, God, that woman you gave me. And so he's pointing the finger at God, and then he's like, that woman over there, she made me do it. Right? But his first thought was not to give himself up for his wife out of his love for her. So love and respect, two critical aspects of a healthy relationship, kind of like twins. but not identical twins. I had two aunts that were twins, but they were nothing alike. So it was fraternal, I guess. And one of them had the identical twins. That's nice. And they had a boy and the twins, the twin girls. The boy had a set of twins.
Yeah.
It's like 3 in a row. Okay, so the relationship will suffer if either love or respect is absent. And if they were identical, the scripture would read, husbands and wives just love one another. Right? So their love and respect are not identical, but they need to be like heads and tails. Same coin, two sides. Right. And men need to understand respect. Men would rather hear that they are respected than that they are loved. Like we just saying, a wife can say, I love you all day long, but if the husband feels disrespected in any way, he won't appreciate the fact that he's loved. And few men honestly understand how to love. When a husband is asked if he loves his wife, he'll make the statement, I married her, didn't I?
If it changes, I'll let you know.
Yeah. I told her I loved her then, and if that ever changes, I'll let her know. And it's a lot easier for a husband to respect his wife than to love her. But that's not what she needs. She would much rather hear from her husband, I love you, than I respect you. I hardly ever say I respect you, but I say I love you all the time. But it's sort of understood, right? I mean, it's the feeling,
You just know.
an understanding that that's happening. It's not. It doesn't have to be said. It's done. Right? Part of the actions.
But you don't get there overnight, Larry. That's something else. You have to work on that trust to be able to have that.
Yeah.
And
that's part of the.
Us that have been divorced or been single and gone through a lot of hurts, it's hard to find that. Mm-hmm. It's not an instant thing. It's something you constantly have to work at to verify that is what you have. Mm-hmm. That's the same with Patty and Anthony. You've been together how long, guys? 7 years? 7, 8 years. Yeah. We have to know. And we can trust one another, that you have each other's back. Mm-hmm. And it's a constant thing that we have to be conscious of what we say and how we treat one another all the time. But that's striving as an individual that we're looking for. And we have some singles in here that may be looking for that, maybe not. They're done. Like I was done after my second divorce. I did not want to be with another guy, period. I had her. But God had other plans. But
I think nowadays, also the I love yous, I don't know, in my viewing, it just wasn't enough. The I love you with no action behind it was just
insincere.
Yeah, it just didn't mean anything. It mean absolutely nothing by what I was seeing.
Right.
And
yeah. That's the idea here. Words are one thing, but like you say, actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
And it's the behavior that matters. And this is kind of one of those Cracker Barrel kind of things here. Right? Men have this tendency, when they see something they want, they go after it until they get it, and then they don't want it to ever change. That's what I want. Stay that way. Right? Well, men generally have a desire or a hope that when they get married, their wife won't change. And this stems from the fact that they feel they got what they wanted. They really don't like change. On the other hand, women seem to have the notion that they'll be able to correct all the faults in the husband after they get married. And for some reason, women always seem to change and husbands never do. So what we're kind of hoping for is like the opposite of what happens.
Well, no, that's not all women, Larry. We're
not
talking one type of woman.
Kind of a very general
Yes.
thing. It's not
Yes.
everybody.
And yes, typically most women would think, well, yeah, I love all about him except for maybe this little area, and I'll work on that after we get married, which is a wrong thing to even enter a relationship feeling that way.
Yeah.
But a lot of us do because we feel that we've got most all the qualities, so we can work on those others to fine-tune those. But that's not how God intended. That's what this class is about, to try to teach you. These are the things and the priority period. This is what your goal is. This is what you should have for a relationship.
And this is usually where I say, don't get a project.
Right.
And either be okay with the way they are, accept whatever it is for what it is. But if you think, well, that's pretty good, but I'll fix this other, you're probably going to spend a lot of time being critical of that one little area and not okay with everything else. Right? Your focus is going to be on what needs to be fixed. So, again, spend a lot of time trying to change the other when you should be asking God to change you. God is not in the spouse changing business, He's in the you changing business. Women understand and need love. When either spouse is not getting what they need, they start holding back on what the other spouse needs. Right? And we talked about wants versus needs. When the wife perceives a lack of love, okay, now, again, perception is one thing, reality is something different. But when one perceives they're not getting what they need, they tend to start withholding what the other one needs. Right? So if the wife is holding back or feeling that she's not being loved, she starts instinctively holding back on her respect. Well, then it becomes more obvious to the husband that he's not being respected, so then he holds back even more on the love. And we call that the crazy cycle. Mm-hmm. Everybody does it. It's recognize it as soon as possible and get off the ride. So, right? It's like everybody does it. The hard part is getting off the ride. And the first one that can humble themselves and say, I'm sorry, gets the prize. Don't let pride get the best of you. Pride will tend to keep you on the ride. Like, I'm not giving up. You surrender. Which everybody loses in that case. Respect is the perception of being honored or having the esteem of others. However, it's not too good to think too highly of yourself. Leave that for someone else to do. And Romans 11:25 talks about that. For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits. It's being prideful. That blindness, in part, has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. Basically, what they're talking about there is, in the Old Testament, it was all about the Jewish people. And salvation had nothing to do with the Gentiles. But when Jesus came in, he brought the Gentiles in as well. So how do you earn respect? Well, there's only one true way to get it is to earn it. It's not something you can demand. The dictator demands respect and uses fear tactics to get what he wants. What he usually gets is obedience out of fear. He does not get respect, he gets obedience. Not the same. God wants obedience too, but he uses love to get what he wants. Respect comes through loving and respecting others. And if you want to earn it, you have to show it to others. And you reap what you sow. You have to first give what you want in order to get what you want. All right, so you sow first, and then you reap later. But it's pretty much, a biblical law. It's a principle that whatever you sow, you reap. So, one of those things that we learned a while back was, when you're lost, you're not saved yet, you're going along, you're kind of planting bad seeds along the way, and you're reaping a bad harvest. And then somewhere along the way, you get saved. Now you start planting a different kind of seed, right? But there's a period there where you're still harvesting from the previous crop. Okay? So that's where a lot of people kind of get messed up in the very beginning, and it talks about the parable of the seeds. Some land on good soil, some on rocky soil, some get trampled and don't do anything. Some get eaten by the birds. So some people that have planted bad seeds and are harvesting a not so good crop, even though they're planting good seeds, they can't get past the fact that it's not changed what they're getting today. But I gave my life to Jesus yesterday. Why am I not getting something good today?
I want it now.
Well, planted years worth of bad seeds. So, it takes a while to catch up and get the harvest from the good seeds. So there's, it takes some work in the beginning here. Again, reap what you sow. So, sow love and respect. Now, this was something in a blended family with children from different marriages. You can't just start demanding that the children from the other spouse respect you. You're going to have to work to earn it, and more often than not, there's going to be some rebellion from at least one child, maybe more, who is closely tied to the ex-spouse of the one you're now married to. We see that a lot. I inherited 3 kids, 2 teenagers and a 4-year-old at the time. And I knew, especially, one was like 17, one was 15. There was no way I was just going to come in and be the boss. No way. Especially with what they had gone through, previously, there was no way. So I had to figure out how I could get from whatever my level was to their level, so I could relate to them. What were they interested in? Was there anything that I was interested in as well in the same ballpark? Which with the son, at least, there was music, sports, stuff like that. But I had to figure out how to relate to them, not just force them to obey. So that was one of the things I did in the beginning. But what needs to happen in the beginning, and this is some stuff that should be done in the premarital stage, develop a plan of attack with the new spouse or spouse-to-be, how you're going to parent. Now, I like the way you guys described that. You talked about that stuff. And so it's all premarital discussion, right? Because I think you both had a similar picture in your head of what it should look like, which helped a lot. That you were kind of at least in the same ballpark on how it should look, who's doing what, who's responsible for this or that. So that was good. But you have to be in agreement. This is probably the one area we have seen over and over and over again where there's a disagreement about the parenting. Right? This is blended family, so we're expecting there's going to be kids in there from day one. Right? You don't really get the honeymoon right off the bat. It took us 14 months to actually go on a honeymoon. And it was kind of, we had the ex-mother-in-law babysitter. So the ex-husband was not real happy about that. But anyway, so having agreement about how to parent gives you the authority and the power to be the parents. Right? If you're in disagreement, the inmates are running the asylum at that point. So when the children see that you as the husband love their mom and she respects you, they will start better behavior. Maybe not right off the bat, but when they see you behaving in a good way, they have less reason to mess things up. It's when there's chaos at the top, there's chaos at the bottom as well. And when there's agreement at the top, there's better odds for agreement below. Okay, so it will take effort, patience, and consistency on your part as a new father to be able to earn the respect of her kids, and vice versa. One way to prove yourself is to discuss marriage goals, family goals, individual goals with and for each member of the family. And that was something we did. We got married right before Christmas. That week between Christmas and New Year's, we just sat everybody down and set goals for the next year. Personal stuff, each one of the kids had their own thing. And we had to do a short, medium, and long-term thing. And we had like hour goals, and a family goal, and all kinds of, which was new to you.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
But, I mean, from where I was working, that was a big deal. Every year, you set goals for the next year. Right? What are you going to do? How are you going to get there? So you get the goal, the end picture of where you want to be, and then you got to figure out how you're going to get there. And those little steps along the way to get you there, you got to figure those out. Okay? And our youngest one figured out real quick how easy it was to get the short-term stuff.
Yeah.
So, and in those days, it was before the internet, so we'd actually go through like magazines and stuff and cut pictures out, put them on the fridge, and as soon as she was able to get the first short-term one, she took that picture down and wanted to put another short-term one on. So she was all about doing the short-term stuff. We're like, no, that's not how that works. You get the first one, that's great. Now you got to get the medium one. You get an ugly face after that.
Twice as long.
But get the family together, talk about what you want to do for the next year or 5 years, whatever. And then, like I'm just saying, get pictures. You can print them off the internet now. You don't have to go to a magazine. But when you have a picture on a piece of paper and it's on the refrigerator, it's always in your face. Because that's where your face is, in front of the refrigerator. But, and then as you get one, take a picture down. And we were able to, and when the whole family has goals, everybody can kind of help each other get towards their goal. Like for kids especially. Yeah. Okay, so how do you get respect? Well, if you want to earn it, so there's two kinds. There's earning it by your performance, and certain people should have respect because of their position. So there's position and performance. Mostly it's performance. But if a man says he's going to do something, he should do it. And the wife is going to be the bank that sets the value of his currency, and if she's going to be doing the exchange of the currency, and she's dictating what it's worth, if you say you're going to do something, don't do it, your currency's not going to be worth much. Right? So this is all about how things were supposed to be in the Old Testament when it was a marriage thing, and it was the man's word was to be his bond. It was supposed to be true. Now, in those days, and even now, everybody's supposed to be a virgin when they get married, but hardly anybody is anymore. And especially in a blended family, that's pretty much out the door, out the window, whatever. But back then, it was expected that they would consummate the marriage immediately after the wedding. And there's a little tent over there. Like, you may kiss the bride, okay, now go take care of business. And the fathers would go check the sheets. If there's no blood, then somebody lied. Well, there's no way to tell about a guy, right? So it was expected if he said he was, but there's no way to prove it. So that's how important the word was in those days, especially. Right? But if there was an issue with the bride, then like whoever was paying for it, the other guy had to pay for it now. Or they just go, sorry, no good. Right, so if time-wise, we're almost done. So currency is a man's word. He can make promises, don't keep it. Your currency is worthless. And who is going to respect somebody that says they're going to do stuff and then they don't do it? That's how you don't earn respect, is by not doing what you say you're going to do. And there's plenty of people like that, and usually they're not in a very good place. So the more you do of what you say you're going to do, the greater the value of your word. Okay. First and fifth commandments: teach your children to respect God, respect their father and mother. Right? First one is love God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. And number 5 is honor thy father and thy mother, that your days may be long upon the earth, which the Lord thy God gives thee. So this one is position. Both of these are position. God is God. He created us, so we respect him because he's God. That's his title. Now, we also respect him because of his performance as well, because he always blesses us when we're in tune. And if we're out of tune, we don't get blessed so much. But if we're in tune, we get blessed. So it's more of a positional thing there. And this one is really a position thing. These two people are your mom and dad. Respect them. And you'll live longer. Okay? That's what it says. Okay, in addition to teaching your children about respect for God and their parents, teach them to respect the elderly. Some of the younger people are kind of afraid of the older folks. It's like,
It's true.
And, I don't remember that so much, but there were some times when especially like when I was in my teens, it was always kind of weird being around these old people. But I definitely was taught respect for my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, all those elderly people.
Well, when I was single with my 3 kids, that was something I wanted to make sure did not happen. I had the older ones, and Michelle was too little, volunteer in the summertime once a week, go to a senior center. And they would go, and my son this one man, he was in charge of this one man, and this man would send him to go get cookies or a newspaper within the building, but he was to go get whatever the man wanted. And then my older daughter, Cheryl, would, maybe the woman wanted her hair brushed. She couldn't put her arms up real high to be able to brush her hair. And when Cheryl became married and a mom, she had her boys do the same thing. In the summertime, Johnny and Tyler would go to a senior center and once a week and help them. So I tried to make sure they did respect the older people. But when we were teaching classes at the church for the the children without dads, I was teaching them life skills, the women, and Larry was teaching well, it's supposed to be boys, but it was boys and girls, how to run a computer, how to build a computer, how to repair a computer. But when I was teaching the women how to be, to volunteer in doing those things for older people, don't be afraid of your aunt because she is going to get older. You know, your mom's going to get there. Try to associate it with somebody that they knew right then. And a lot of them said, well, we're not around them, and our mom makes us go a different way, so we don't even see them. And I said, well, you might ask if you can help that person. Maybe take a wheelchair and put it out in the sunshine so they can sit outside for a change. And then things they would say, I never even thought of that. Nobody has ever told me that. And that's the trouble. They don't want to take the time to teach these kids. So, you know, they're going to get old themselves. If they don't teach them how to appreciate them when they do get old, those kids are not going to be there for them.
Yeah. Well, I saw my grandparents basically living with one of the kids somewhere, right? So, I mean, you know, they were generally around.
Yeah.
You know.
Mine too.
My one grandma lived in a duplex next to my aunt and uncle. You know, same house, different, two houses in one, right? And the other grandma lived with one of the daughters, one of my aunts. So, and, you know, I mean, so they were always kind of around, you know. I never knew the one grandfather. Right? He passed away when I was like, probably not even 2. Don't remember him too much. The other one I remember, he lived kind of on his own. He used to smoke Camels, the unfiltered ones. The thing I remember most is yellow fingers.
We need to give them that reward.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He's coming back.
He's just going to kids.
Well, and these couple of scriptures here are all about respecting the elderly, right? Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head, which is the gray hair, and honor the face of the old man, and fear thy God. I am the Lord. So that's God telling us that. And again, the gray hair is the crown of glory, if it be found in the way of righteousness. So just because you got gray hair doesn't mean a whole lot unless you're living a godly life. That's a big thing. Right? And the last one, the glory of young men is their strength, and the beauty of old men is the gray head. So I'm working on that. Okay, fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Okay, well, this is talking about how we respect God, right? So, again, it's his position that reverence and godly fear. And we're doing one of these. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain, because we get heaven. Or, for they all seek after their own interests, not those of Christ. So we're in one of those camps. Pick one. About being angry, you know, when we disrespect, a lot of times we get angry for stuff. But the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And be a doer, not a hearer only. A lot of people go to church, they hear the sermon, and then they just go on and do their own stuff the rest of the week, and then they come back next Sunday and praise the Lord, and then they go do their stuff. Right? Therefore, lay aside all filthiness and overflow of wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. So that's the end of that one. That's the end of the semester. Sorry about the video issues. Camera would not even connect to Facebook today. We will be back next year.
Thank you for tuning in today and joining us for Blended Families Ministry with Doctors Larry and Carol Snap. We hope you've enjoyed. It's our sincere prayer that this class blessed you today. There's many more to come, so keep tuning in and make sure you share this with somebody you know and tell them about Blended Families Ministry here on Christian Living Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Goins, signing off. Until next week, may God's best be yours.
Join the best positive Christian lifestyle movement on the air at Christian Living Radio.